right, I think we're on. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the pre-lesson show. Sure to stay tuned in. I think today going to talk about basic soloing and how to force yourself into feeling more comfortable with picking random things out of the air. Oh yeah, first lesson of the new year. Welcome to the new year. May it serve us all well. Just going to kick around for another 10 minutes or so until 10 o'clock. And then we'll get started. I like to tune in early, make sure all my stuff's working, collect folks as we go along who might roll up early. Aloha from Brazil. Well, aloha from Hawaii. Good morning. Thanks for tuning in. timing's hard. Even for the best players, timing is still always the hang up for the most part. Because you can be playing through something, and until it's like in that perfect spot in the groove, it's not perfect, and it still could swing harder if you play it better. And that's one of those situations where I've been working on learning that. That's Reeling in the Years by Steely Dan. But like the lead riff is uh, and then this part that's all like it is what it is. It's my fingers hanging up on that, but the timing I feel okay with. But then when you get to this thing, it's like the easiest part of it to play, but because of how it's articulated, it's really easy to rush it and to feel like you're not in that pocket. So I've been trying to force myself to, when I get to that part, like stop and pay attention to the timing, because if you blow that, you play that slower than you think compared to everything else because it's easier. And a lot of times that happens is you play something that's simple, you end up rushing the simple spots and you slow down for the hard stuff. And it's something you're just gonna have to constantly work on as you improve, because that, I don't know, in my experience, that never ends. You just keep on trucking, keep on working on the timing game. Well, welcome if you're tuned in early. Got about 5 minutes. We're gonna sit around, wait for everybody else to catch up. Aloha, Bettina. Thank you for tuning in from Germany. That's great. I was in Germany, 2 years ago? I taught a workshop over there in Freiburg. It's just awesome, awesome place. I got to go hang out with my friend in Heidelberg as well, and just loved it. I loved how efficient Germany is. It's like, get so tired of waiting on people elsewhere in the world. It's like, come on, get it done, be efficient. And then you go to Germany and it's like, that's how it is all the time. It's so great. But yeah, it's so interesting that the ukulele has made it so far across the world that anywhere you go, really, I can't think of anywhere except maybe like Africa. I haven't heard of a whole lot of ukulele stuff coming out of Africa, but otherwise, it's everywhere. It's totally, totally everywhere. And when I went to Germany and did the workshops, people were so excited and so tuned in to learn, especially learn the Hawaiian music that I was teaching, because the guy who facilitated the workshop was like, "You got to come in, you got to teach Hawaiian music, because we never get Hawaiian people or Hawaiian players out here because it's the other side of the world." And so I taught them Hawaiian stuff, and the whole time everybody was just like watching me, watching me intently, and they got everything just so quickly. We went so fast because everybody was just like on their learning game, and it was a lot of fun and cool to see that other places can be so excited about Hawaiian music, and that's a treat for me as a Hawaiian player. Where even in Hawaiian music, it's kind of like just a thing. I mean, it's great, but it's not maybe appreciated by the general public or the ukulele playing public quite as much as you would think. Kind of counterintuitive. So if you're new to this game, all of the past lessons I've got posted up. You can of course find them on YouTube, but I've got them posted up on my website. If you go down in the stream description, if you're on YouTube, and click the link there, it'll take you to a page on my website that's I've been kind of archiving all the past lessons we've done. If you want to bookmark that every week, I'll be linking to the newest stream, so you can catch the newest stream live on Live Ukulele, but also watch the old videos as well if you would like. So if you want to move yourself into a more ukulele centric environment and poke around over there, got lots of lessons and other videos, and really just tons and tons of resources and materials. Please check it out. See what we can learn together. That's why I do this. It's like my learning on the fly and helping you learn on the fly, and just share what I've picked up over the years. And really, that's sort of what I feel is my responsibility as a player, especially in Hawaii. That's kind of how we roll. Is you're always pass on your knowledge and what you know. So that's my intent here, and my intent with the website always has been, and I plan on it always will being my main goal. Good morning, Darlene. Kia ora. Okay, we almost made it. The pre-waiting window is almost over. I actually figured out this morning how to put a little countdown timer on my website, and at least for my time zone. I hope it's the right time zone for everybody else. But we can count down 4, 3, 2, 1, according to the popcorn lady or the official time person. But yeah, it's 10 o'clock now. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Today I thought I would talk about simple soloing and simple ways you can kind of get into soloing, even if you think that you can't or you don't know how, or fill in the blank excuse, because it's really not that hard. It's just a matter of seeding yourself with some ideas and getting into the swing of things and realizing what your possibilities are. And so I thought we could start with a super simple exercise that is kind of deceivingly simple. And it's something actually that James Hill mentioned to me in kind of like a, haha, we can all play, but this is harder than you would think it is, kind of a thing as an advanced player. It's like, try this. It's simple, but it's hard because it's simple. And basically what we're going to do is you're going to play one note on every quarter. Okay. And I'll show you. We'll play an A because we can, because everybody always plays in C. It's no harder to play an A, especially for something simple like this. Okay. What we're going to do is you're going to get 3 notes on the 2 bottom strings each. Okay. So you're going to play the open string, open E string, 2nd string from the floor, and then the 2nd fret, and then the 3rd fret. So open, 2, 4, open, 2, 4. And then you're going to do the same thing on the bottom string. Open, 2, 4, open, 2, 4. Okay, so those notes are E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, and C sharp. Okay, those are 6 notes out of the A major scale. And you can play any of them at any time when you're doing a solo in the key of, say, A. And if you just play them up and down, that's fine. If you play them in any order you want, that's also fine. But the idea of this is that I want to kind of try and trick you into having musical thoughts and musical simple expressions. Okay. So what we're going to do, or what you're going to do, I'm just going to play chords. But what I want you to do is, with the beat, play 1 note per beat. Any note. It doesn't matter what note it is. For instance, if I was to just start with one of those 6 notes and just kind of diddle my way through the other 6, you would play like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with the beat. Click, 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 click. I'm not really trying to be melodic or to play anything super beautiful at this point. I'm just trying to keep on the mark and play any one of those 6 notes. Okay, I'm going to strum an A chord and give you kind of a beat. Try and follow along and diddle around with that. Remember, you're staying with the beat. That's the whole idea. Is if you go off and do something different, you're not going to be able to have the epiphany moment that I hope to share with you in a second. Okay, so if we're counting in, 1, 2, ready, diddle. So you'd be going pick, 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 any one of those 6 notes. The idea is it should get boring. Okay? So what I'm hoping you folks were feeling was that, gee, I wish I could stay on this note instead of having to move. And that's why if you force yourself to move, you can have that feeling of, oh, but I want to stay here. This is like sounding like something. And that is a musical seed. It's a musical statement, really. By wanting to stay on something, you are using your sensibilities to say, hey, it would sound good if I stayed here. Okay? So that's my way of tricking you into coming up with basically something to get you over the hump of, oh, I don't know what to play. Just play some notes, and if you feel like stopping, stop on that note and wait until you feel like playing again, and then play some more. That's basically what soloing is, except, it'll become more and more refined as you go along. So now try the same thing. Remember the notes we got: open, second fret, fourth fret on the E string, and also on the A string. And you're playing, oh, we were playing on the beat, but now play on the beat, but when you want to, stop for an extra beat and then go back to playing on the beat. Okay? This will allow you to have some breathing room, to kind of have phrases where you could play. Right? You can have, there's a little bit more of a conversation happening because you are incorporating those spaces. But still, try and play on the quarter notes if you can. So either play on a quarter note or rest on a quarter note and stay on the beat. That way you won't get overwhelmed with like option anxiety of having too many places the notes can go. Just play quarter notes. 1, 2, try it again. Right? Hopefully that allowed you to express yourself a little bit better and to find a little bit more of kind of a lane where you can have a melody and express yourself a little bit better. If you got any questions, throw them up in the chat. I'll try and answer them as best as possible. Otherwise, keep trucking on with this idea. Really, when you get into soloing, there are no rules. And because there are no rules, like I said, option anxiety can be a real big problem, is because you have so many options and so many things you could play. You end up just sitting there thinking about what you could play and you never actually end up playing anything. So by forcing yourself to be simple about it, you're actually going to probably have more success than just like, okay, I can play anything. Yeah, that's great, but what are you going to play? So this is how I recommend that most people start, or a way of starting, not necessarily the only or the best, but here's an idea for how to start, is to limit yourself to a number of notes. If 6 notes feels like too much and you can't remember what they are, just play 3 notes, or even 2 notes, or even 1 note. I've seen, plenty of kind of tongue-in-cheek solos where the person only plays 1 note and all they play with is the rhythm. You can create interest just with the rhythm. And so if you're feeling like there's too many notes for you to think about, don't think about as many notes. Play whatever is comfortable that you can make musical in some way or another, whether it be one note or 6 notes or the whole entire fretboard. Because all that you're really doing when you expand to playing across the fretboard is just you have more options. That's all that's happening. Is nothing is changing with your approach or with necessarily um, what you intend to say musically. It's just that you're going to have more options to do so. So in the meantime, before you give yourself all those options, limit yourself to just a handful of notes. Let's try doing something that I like to do where you take you remove the lowest note on a certain string of the scale and you add the next note in the scale on the string. So we were playing before 0 2 4 0 2 4. Instead of playing the open strings, we'll start on the 2nd fret now and find um, the next scale note on the string, and we'll move everything up. So now we have 2 4. Then I know that the next note in the scale is going to be 5. And you can play this, probably want to play these all in line with your fingers and your pinky here, like so. Okay, so it's going to be 2 4 5. And then it just so happens that, again, you're going to play 2 4 5 on the A string. This doesn't always happen. It doesn't always go in fret pairs like this. But in this case, it does. Okay, so we're still in the key of A. We've just shifted up so that now we don't get the lowest notes we were playing, but we get one note higher on each string. Okay, so try that a couple times. You're going to be 2 4 5 2 4 5, still on the 2 bottom strings. Okay, and because of where we're at, it kind of has a minor sound if you start and you play it as a scale from the F sharp. That's because F sharp is the relative minor of the key of A, F sharp minor. So we can do the same solo example we did earlier, except I could play an F sharp minor chord and the whole solo would sound minor. Okay, so let's try that now. I'll play the same thing that I was doing with the F sharp minor. You try either playing all on the quarter notes or play on the quarter notes and add rests when you feel like it. Whatever you feel like you need to work on, try that style of diddling over the top of that and use these notes instead of playing the open strings. Now play from your first finger on the 2nd fret. 2 4 5 2 4 5 on the E string and the A string. Right? So just to back up a sec, take it a little bit slower. If you were to do that, you're just going to pick those random notes on those frets and come up with something like this. That kind of a thing where you're just plodding along with each of those notes. You know, don't give yourself too many options. Just stay on the quarter note and pick some random notes. And if you want to start following kind of a line and go up or down, or start thinking about which note you might want to have after one another as far as high or low, that would be a positive thing as well. All right, now we're going to sound minor. Notice how the tonality changes. A lot of people find that minor is actually kind of easier to hear things in and to come up with some sort of soloing melody. 1 2 ready, go. successes, I hope, little moments. You can't expect when you're just starting out with this stuff to be any kind of brilliant. Don't put that pressure on yourself, because that's not the point of what we're doing. You're just trying to kind of break open the door so that you can get into the room and see what's happening and just find a little bit of inspiration, whether it's like two notes that sounded good or one note that sounded good, or you kind of did what you intended, or you stopped in a place that felt right. That's what you're going for, more than like overwhelming brilliance. Because with this sort of thing, because we're building bumpers basically to keep us in line with the parameters, you're less able to make it a brilliant piece of music, because we're playing just on the quarter notes. There's only so much you can do with it, and it's going to sound a little stiff even if you were to hand this to a brilliant player. So just find your fun, find your happy place with this, and just kind of continue along with what we're doing. Let's do one more hop up. We've been taking the lowest note away and adding the next highest note in the scale. If we go up one more time, actually we're going to remain. So we're taking away the second fret now. Now we're going to start on the fourth fret. So we're going to have fourth fret, fifth fret, seventh fret. And then again, it just so happens that it's going to be the same on the A string. So 4, 5, 7, 4, 5, 7 on the E and the A strings. Those are our sandbox notes, just to give ourselves some parameters and to not wander too far or get any kind of option anxiety. Kidok. With that in mind, I'm going to now change between my chords. So I'm going to play F minor, F sharp minor, and A. And by going between those, I'm going to shift the tonality of kind of your underlying bedrock for what you're playing. Try and listen to that and maybe adjust accordingly for which notes you decide to stop on, which notes you want to just pass on by. Because depending on what you're playing over, you're going to want to emphasize certain notes depending on what you want to express. So see if you can hear some of those moments where you kind of like, oh, that note sounds really in. Maybe I'm going to stop there. Just see if you can hear any of those things, and I'll explore this a little bit in a second. Okay, so I'm going to start on, it doesn't matter what I'm going to play. You pay attention to you. Just listen to my background and try and follow along. Just stay in time if you can with the beat. 1, 2, ready, diddle. You're picking along with my strumming hand. Pick, 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 pick. And if you want to throw a rest in there, go for it, but stay on the quarter note. Curveball, just use your ears. Nothing should really change for you. Okay. When you're playing over chords, a lot of times you're going to want to lean on the notes that are in the chord. If I'm playing an A, theory-wise, the notes that are in an A are A, C sharp, and E. So anywhere there's an A, C sharp, or E on the fretboard, if I start or stop my phrases on those notes, it's going to sound extra in. It's going to sound extra consonant and harmonious with that chord. So we've been moving around, but the last little bit we were trying was on the 4th fret, 5th fret, 7, 4, 5, 7 on the 2 bottom strings. So you have a mixture of notes there out of the A major scale. Some of them are in the chord, some of them are not. So this is where the soloing can get a little bit finky, and this is where I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, but I don't necessarily think it's a good idea for you to think about it. It's better to follow your ears, because your ears will tell you, hey, this is part of the chord, or probably not part of the chord. Your ears will do that for you without having to even think about it. And so a lot of people overburden themselves by thinking about something when they don't need to. So don't be one of those people. Okay. Out of these notes, we have, this is G sharp, this is A. This is in the A chord. This is B. This is C sharp. This is in the A chord. D, E. This is in the A chord. So A, C sharp, E in a different location, just because it's in a different spot, still within the harmony of the chord. Same notes, different locations. That's what you want. Same notes is the main thing. Okay. So you have basically there, if you were to play those individually, that's an arpeggio, right? That's the kind of thing you hear in classical music. What would the clever move be? Right? It's a very stylistic kind of a thing. So with that A arpeggio, and an arpeggio is simply the notes of a chord played in order. So in this case, I'm just playing A, C sharp, E, which is the notes of the chord in order. If you use those notes more strongly, if you lean on those notes a little bit more than the others, if you were to find like the not A chord notes, those would be D, and then B, and then the G sharp. And that is actually a different chord arpeggio, but we'll talk about that in a sec. So if I'm strumming an A chord, if I'm diddling on my notes, if I want to be consonant with the chord I'm playing over, I'm going to lean on those arpeggio notes. I can play other notes, but if I start and stop on those notes, that's a good guideline for sounding like you really know what you're doing. But remember, your ear is going to tell you whether you're playing one of those notes or not. And I don't have two of me to demonstrate this with simultaneously, but if I play to kind of get the sound of the chord in my ear, it's not any kind of fabulous melody or anything, but when I stop and when I start, I'm kind of feeling like those notes that are in the chord, those are the strong notes. So if I play those when I start and stop a phrase, I'm going to sound a little more in. Whereas if I don't play those notes, I'm going to sound a little more out. And there's nothing wrong with sounding a little more out, but you need to believe in it a little bit more. You need to believe that that's what I want to play. Because really, the difference between a wrong note and a right note is how much you believe in it. That's the only difference, really. You could play a wrong note in the middle of a song that's completely out of key, but if you believe in it and you put it in the right place, it's going to totally work. So I'm going to go back to my A chord and just strum the A chord. Try and use your 6 notes and listen for how starting and stopping on the notes from that A arpeggio fit with the chord and how they lend it to being more consonant sounding. 1, 2, ready, go. If you feel like I'm cutting you off and you're in the middle of something good, I'd totally recommend getting out like your phone or something and or recorder of some sort and recording yourself just playing A or playing a chord, whatever you decide to solo in, for 5 minutes. Just play the chord and record yourself. Then you'll have a longer track to play along with because I'm kind of like giving you the ideas and the concepts that hopefully you can take and practice on your own and expand upon. So, yeah, if I'm cutting you off, I apologize, but try and keep the lesson going and interesting and get a little bit more content in here. But that's super good practice as well. It's like finding a strong rhythm and just holding your own time while you record it and then playing back with yourself. Okay. Now, one of the things I love about teaching are the spontaneous random moments you don't intend. And so when we got here, with our 4, 5, 7, 6 note window that we've got going on. If we play the A arpeggio, those are the notes that sound good in A. If we play the inverse of that and play those out of these 6 notes, the ones that aren't in the chord, you get D, B, and G sharp. So G sharp, B, and D, right? So that's the 4th fret on the E string, 7th fret, and then the 5th fret on the A string. That's lovely by itself. That's actually an E7 arpeggio. So you can hear the chord change outlined if I play the arpeggios back to back. So you have A, E, or E7. Okay, so you can play the arpeggios like that, and it's kind of its own cool sounding thing. But if you want to nerd out on this a little bit and think about it a little bit more, remember what I said though about trying to use your ears. That your ears will tell you all this stuff, but thinking about it might help you internalize it a little bit better. What we can do is I will play from A to E7, and when I go to the E7, your emphasis notes are going to change. Instead of emphasizing and starting and stopping on the A arpeggio notes, the notes out of an A chord, you're going to want to emphasize in order to be consonant on the E7 chord. You're going to want to emphasize G sharp, B, D, and also the E is also part because there's 7 notes in a 7th chord. There's 4 notes in a 7th chord. 4 notes in a 7th chord, and they are the E, G sharp, B, and D. So you actually have 4. But if you want to just think about it as, A is these notes, and the inverse is the E7, that's completely fine as well. However that works for you. But remember, you can just follow your ears. Your ears will tell you the same thing. Well, let's try that. Try playing your quarter note melody with the rests where you like, plodding along. And now I'll play each chord for longer than I have been. So maybe I'll do 4 bars of each chord, and I'll announce when the next chord is coming. And you're going to try and change your phrasing so that when you go from chord to chord, you're shifting which tones you're emphasizing. Starting on A. 1, 2, ready, diddle. Going to E7. And back to A. E7. Back to A. E7. All right. Hopefully you were able to get into a little bit of a groove and find some places where having the consonant notes matching with the chord kind of gave you a little bit of resolution and intention sounding in your diddles. Um, that's that's great. That's what we're going for, is just little moments of inspiration. Don't try and pressure yourself into being, creating something masterful out of that. It's intentionally limited so you don't get overwhelmed. But remember, you can think about this and think like, oh, I'm playing over an A now, so I'm going to play this note, and this note more intentionally. I'm going to start and stop on these notes. And now I'm on an E7, so I'm going to start and stop. That's way too much thinking. Way too much thinking. I'm explaining what's happening so that you can kind of conceptualize it and move towards that because you know what's happening. But really, if you play each note out of these 6 over the top of a chord that I'm playing or anybody's playing, you're going to hear that certain ones sound more in. They sound better than others. Those are the chord tones. And as you get more practiced at the soloing thing, as you move through a phrase or through a melody, you'll know like, oh, this is a good place to stop because this is a note that's in the chord. It sounds better than others as a stopping or starting point. Okay, so any questions? We got some fun thumbs ups coming in. I love to see that. That's the whole idea, is to just help folks like relax into just playing music, kind of like, hey, look, what's that over there? And then before they know it, they're actually playing some free form music and creating some things. But if you have any questions about all this, please throw them up in the chat. Would be happy to help clarify anything if it needs to be clarified. Otherwise, we've got a number of different exercises we've done so far. We can continue to keep ratcheting this up, but please do remember that this is just me showing you concepts, and the more you can do this, the better. So the scale that I'm showing you is the A major scale. There's 12 scales. You can do this same exact thing in 12 different keys at this difficulty level. All that's going to change is your 6 diddle notes. You'll have to find a scale chart or figure out what notes you should be using for each key. If you go to the link below, go to liveukulele.com and go up to the resources bit in the navigation menu, there should be a scales option. If you go there, you can download a full bundle of scale charts that I've made There's way more than you'll ever need, but the main ones you want to focus on are the major scales, and you'll see that there's a bunch of dots on the page on a fretboard representation. You can print it out, circle the 6 that you want to use, or mentally like, oh, that's where they're going to be, and then find them on your fretboard and use those for over whatever chord you want to practice over. Okay. And remember, the phone voice memo recorder thing, record yourself playing these chords so that you have kind of a virtual buddy to play with, because that's really important, is having the harm. You can diddle on your own, but hearing where the chord changes happen and um, hearing the harmony as you play the lead, that's really important for building a confidence in knowing what notes fit with the chord and what notes don't. So I highly recommend doing that, recording yourself, playing back with yourself as you get more comfortable with this. So start with 6 notes, play 6 notes. If you want to expand your rhythmic options, go for it. You can play, if I was playing from the 2nd fret to the 5th fret, right? If you want to change the rhythm a little bit, you can do that as you advance and get more comfortable. But if you find yourself lost or unsure what to do, go back to being more simple. Play just on quarter notes and keep yourself within the bumpers so that you're not feeling aimless. You're not feeling like, oh, I don't know what to do. Give yourself parameters so that you can discover your little musical epiphanies as you go and not feel overwhelmed by all of the options. Now, we've been playing up through a number of different scale windows where we get 6 notes across 2 strings. We started with open 2 4 and then open 2 4. Whoops, out of control. And then we shifted up. We took away the lowest notes and we added a note higher in the scale. So we had 2 4 5, 2 4 5, and then we played 4 5 7, 4 5 7. Okay, a lot of these are going to repeat, but as you kind of push back the walls of what you're going to have more note options. And so if we combine all of these little zones that we've been playing in, you could play on each string. So you're going to have open 2 4 5 7. Those are all golden notes in the key of A. All right, let's try soloing on those. I'm just going to play a chord progression. What I play doesn't really matter to you, but use your ears as I change chords. See if there's a note you want to stop on that sounds like it's a better place to be than, say, another note. All right, key of A, playing diddling on frets 0 2 4 5 7. Remember, quarter notes if you get bored, or not if you get bored, if you get overwhelmed, opposite of boredom. If you get overwhelmed, go back to playing quarter notes and just plodding along. 1 2 ready, go. So as long as you're inside the key and you're playing chords that naturally occur in the key, you can create your own backing tracks and practice soloing over any chord combination. The problem is where if you were to like play the chords from say 5'2" Eyes of Blue or something along those lines, a lot of those like Tin Pan Alley swing tunes, they borrow chords from other keys, and in order to make it sound good and to fit, you have to change a note in the scale. So that's an added bit of difficulty that you don't want to deal with yet if this is all new to you. Instead, just stick with the basic chords that occur naturally in the key, and that's going to be your 1 4 5, and then your relative minors of the 1 4 5. So the 1 4 5 is simply if you start on the beginning of the scale, so A, B, C sharp, D, E. The D and the E are the 4 and the 5. And so if you figure out the relative minor of the 1 4 5 as well, those are your other half of the key. And then there's one weird one, but that's basically the 5 7. Anyway, too complicated, does not matter. But if you create yourself a few different backing tracks or chord patterns, those are super good for practicing over, as well as pre-made backing tracks that you can find like on YouTube, or there's some websites that have backing tracks dialed in that you can download as well. But YouTube's really good. There's lots of stuff. If you say backing track key of A, you'll find a bunch of different options. You know, there might be like a rock and roll one, there might be like a country one, there might be even a jazz or a swing one that you can find. It depends. Lots of people just make these and put them up, and you can play them. And a lot of times it's just repeating chord progressions. Maybe there's a verse and a chorus so that you get a separate chord change. But if you play over that, a lot of times people find that having that extra music happening around them is inspiring and helps kind of inform what they choose to play out of their note selections for their solo. But again, if you take just a little bit of something, a piece of a scale or a piece of the possible rhythms, and you bring it down, then you're going to force yourself to think about all the different ways you can execute those few things. Which is why I think if like, oh, you want to learn to solo, learn the entire fretboard. I don't feel like that's necessarily the best approach, because you should know the fretboard eventually. But as you're beginning to solo, you're a lot better off to have a handful of notes that you can use that you know work well, and figure out how, as a musician, you can use those notes to create a musical expression. That's more important. And so, whatever number of notes that turns out to be for you, if you get overwhelmed at 4 notes, then play 3 notes and figure out how all the different ways that you could use 3 notes to create different statements. And those 3 notes are going to sound different over different chords. One note might sound like you want to just pass by it with one chord, and that same note might be the note you lean on most with a different chord. It all really just depends. But if you don't give yourself the space to kind of become confident with those small musical bits, there's no way you're ever going to become musically confident with all the musical bits and all the possibilities. Hello, David. Appreciate it. So I feel like that's a pretty good overview of just some real basic exercises for soloing. If anybody has any questions, throw them in the chat. Trying to think what else might be useful to send you away with as far as ideas and soloing things. One thing that you could go back and look at that would probably be useful, especially as you... Okay, so when we were playing just in our 6th fret or our 6-note windows, or this one, or this one, there weren't any places where you were repeating notes. But as you open up the entirety of the fretboard, you're going to start repeating notes. And in order to avoid this and to understand why this happens, why the matrix overlaps. I recommend you go back and watch the first live stream I did, this first recent live stream I did back wherever it was, the middle of December, because I talked about the shift points where the string moves from one note on one string to the same note on the next string down. And if you can get comfortable with those shift points, which there were some exercises and play alongs in that video too, I believe. And if you incorporate that with your solos, I think that hand in hand is super valuable as opposed to maybe like learning the entire fretboard right yet. You want to do that eventually, but just, if you're just getting into soloing, give yourself, give yourself the bumpers and learn where you can switch strings to start pushing back the shadows of the fretboard and add one note at a time or two notes at a time and see what you can come up with. But the main thing is have fun. I can't believe how many people sit down with something like this and they're just like so focused they don't have any fun with it. It's like, geez, relax a little bit. Just, see what you come up with. And you're not going to break anything except maybe a string. Okay. So for those who want to check out a bit more, please check the link in the description. Go check out my past live streams. Actually, that one on the switching strings bit is there in the archives. I've got it all on that page. You can find all the streams on that page. There's lots of other resources on the website. Please sign up for my mailing list. That's a great way for me to stay in touch with you, let you know what's going on. I promise I don't spam a bunch of emails all at once, or I'd like once a week at the very most if I'm feeling super productive, more like once a month. Hey, aloha, Susan. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I'll catch you next week, same time, same place. Tell your friends, share it with your ukulele clubs. Going to try and keep this going until I get extra super bored with it, or until we run out of things to teach, which will not happen, I promise. So happy New Year. Take care of yourselves. Be safe out there. Keep playing the ukuleles. Yeah, and come check out liveukulele.com. See you there. There's lots of good stuff. Everybody who comes and pokes around for a bit, they go, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff here. Yeah. Since 2007 worth of stuff. Okay, I'll see you all next week. Aloha.